Hello, guys. This is Dr. Patrick Price, and welcome to the Body Detective Show. Today, I have a longtime friend of mine, musician, world-class musician at that, Craig Sweeden. He was a drummer back in the day, ended up playing the guitar and many other instruments, and now records, does video work, does basically the whole show. So you're talking about a person who creates and makes an album every week. Now, if you're a musician, you know that's a lot of work, a lot of thinking, a lot of creativity. Craig is just one of those guys that goes over and above as a musician. I call him the music man. So today, I'd like everybody to give a warm welcome to my friend and world-class musician, Craig Sweeden. All that's good.
Mammoth is one.
Okay, here we go. We got Craig Sweeden. Hey, Craig. How's it going there, buddy?
Hi, Patrick.
All right, guys. We're now live with a good friend of mine, longtime friend from childhood days back in Louisiana, Mr. Craig Sweeden. And so we're going to start off the show today asking Craig, like I do everybody else on the Body Detective Show, who is Craig Sweeden?
That's a tough question for the first one. Craig Sweeden is the artist musician, same I've always been, that is trying to fit in still with the working man, the daily working man kind of thing that I still trying to fit in with. Yeah.
But being so talented, I look at it as anybody who has like a talent as extreme as yours, the rest of the world just doesn't seem normal. It's like you have your own world, your own creations, and especially musicians, you live in music. I look at you as a music man. You don't represent anything else in life except music.
Yeah, right? It's tough. You know, I used to for years there. You know, I was working in New Orleans, the television. You remember you come down there a lot, which we had a lot of great times. But I tried to, excuse me, conform and think that I was doing a pretty good job of it to fit in and be like, you know, the normal guy with the career, you know, advertising, sales, that kind of thing. And I thought, man, you're doing pretty good, you know, being this normal guy, you know, and it would end up inevitably not working for whatever reason. I think the creative stuff started to overpower me in those instances where I just wasn't happy, you know, and I would always go back to what, you know, I was never too far away from it, but I was always go back, try to rack my brain how I can do this professionally again, make a living again, and do what I do. So it's always been a very yin and yang, very much a battle there between the whole thing. And it is today.
I really think, Craig, as many people as I've interviewed and as friends like you that I have, is someone who has these extreme abilities and talents. You don't have a normal life. There's nothing normal about your life. Your life is always going to be unique and different from the rest of the people who just get up and go to work and do the 9-to-5 job. And that just if you try to fit into that world and you're not that kind of person, it's just not going to work for those. You do what you got to do until you get back to where you are. But tell me this. Let's tell everybody in the audience who's watching us today, how did you get started in music?
I just want to say that I know if there's anybody that can help me get back to that, I know it's you. You know, I'm a big fan and very big. I know you know what's going on, and I've seen it, and I've been following you a long time. So that's why I'm doing this too, man. So what was your question? I'm sorry.
How did you get started? Because we go back a long time ago back in Louisiana. How did you first get started in music? How did you know you had some kind of ability, you know?
Yeah, one of my cousins were back when I was real young. His next door neighbor had a set of drums, and the guy was, you know, older than me, and he'd been through band, and he was trained. You know, the guy was pretty serious, you know. And I would go over there and watch him. And when I would come into Alexandria when we were living in Mississippi, way back when I was younger. And I go over there, I was so enthralled and so intrigued by what he was doing. Every time I go over there, I'd ask, can I go next door? Can I go next door? And of course, I had to make sure he was there and it was cool with him and all that. So I was really blown away by his skills on drum kit when I was 7, 8 years old, really blown away. So I was always talking drums. And I was about 9 years old. Parents surprised me with a drum kit for Christmas. You know, I was crying.
The old Christmas drum kit. That's how it all starts.
Dude, that was a memorable there. I thought that was the best thing I'd ever received in my life. It was like the Holy Grail. So, and then they were like, after that, it was me setting that up in an old shed that we have with records and headphones on, playing along to everybody that I listened to every single day, beating the shit out of the kit. And yeah, it was just pretty much like that. And I was just into it from a young age, and I was listening, but really, what really turned me from just going out there listening and playing to like being, okay, this is what I'm going to do, was a friend of mine knew I was starting. I was kind of a young drummer, and I was over his house seeing my friend, and his older, cool, long hair brother from high school came in. You know, this is way back in the day, right? And he said, "Look, man, you don't need to listen to any of that. You need to listen to this." And he handed me, it's going to really show my age, but I have to say it anyways, an 8-track tape of Rush 2112. And that's when life changed for me, I'm proud to say. I mean, and it changed immensely, like intensely, immensely changed right on the spot. For a year later, I was still listening every night, going to sleep, 2112, a year. And a lot of other fans of theirs who've been through the experience, all the Metallica band, they'll tell you right off the bat, Dream Theater, all those guys, every one of them will tell you who their influence was, and the same experience with 2112. It's really strange. But that album didn't sound like any, even today, it does not sound like anybody now. It didn't sound like anybody then. It was so advanced and so unique. Three guys were doing this music. I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever heard. So that was it. I knew what I wanted to do right there. I fooled myself. I was like, going to start college. You might remember. I started, and like 60 days later, I'm like, dude, I'm not that. I could have been if I wanted to. That wasn't what I didn't want to be, the academic guy. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I want to hit the road touring, playing with the band. So, and this was what happened. I moved to Shreveport and started.
So when did you really notice that your skills were getting much better than normal?
Yeah, because it took a long time before they actually were. When you're younger and you're not coached by anybody, you know, you kind of just go off on your own there, and that can have some pluses to it, but mostly, you know, mostly it's problematic, you know, not doing things the right way. When I realized my skills were big enough was when some of the big bands would come through Alexandria when I was younger and would allow me to sit in with them. You remember 24K, I'm sure. Right? Remember that band, 24K from New Orleans? Yeah. Those guys would let me sit. He had a $20,000 sonar kit. It was like going, you're going to allow me to play that thing, really? But I would play live with his band and do like, you know, Jimi Hendrix or Crossroads by Clapton or something. And they'd ask me to, every time they'd come in town, to sit in and jam with them. And then some of the other bands, like the Kids from Shreveport, who were huge, they should have been enormous. They should have been as big as Billy Idol or anybody. I don't know why they weren't, but those are all friends of mine. Sit in with them every time they come in. And that's when I noticed that my skills were maybe a little above average, maybe I would say, cautiously. But I knew where I was going with it. I knew that I wanted every bit of instruction and help I could get to better myself. I knew that. And I knew I wasn't there, quote unquote, like where I wanted to be as a player, but I knew where I was going, and I was looking for the help then. So, and I got it too.
So when did that take you? Like when you started touring, I know I would be back in Alexandria, and I would see during the holidays, Craig would come in town. We'd run into each other. We'd always just hang out at the local bar, have a drink together, you know. And he shared, and I was living off his stories of touring the world. When did you finally go and do that lifestyle? You finally leave Louisiana and go to the bigger stages?
When I moved from Ellick to Shreveport, because Shreveport's music scene was pretty famous and had a lot of history, more history than I even believed then. I never knew that Elvis Presley played the Hayride every day for 2 years there, for example, or 4 years. Wow, I think it was.
Shreveport.
Yeah, every weekend he did. I had no idea. Ironically, his steel guitar player, Elvis Presley's, was the most iconic of all time. I ended up playing with his son, Jimmy Day Jr. Jimmy Day Sr. was with Elvis Presley. Jimmy Day Jr. I played with, toured around the world with, which was ironic. His father was that iconic of a guy. But when I was in Shreveport, to answer your question, I was playing around anybody I could get to play with, you know, which is a little band called Circus with a girl lead singer. She was really, really good. Julie Banks, great singer. But the guys were older and they just weren't motivated. They were kind of your hometown guys that never left and they didn't want to do anything, didn't want to practice, didn't want to rehearse. And that just wasn't flying for me. So there was a band I went and saw in Shreveport, Patrick, called Private Life.
Private Life.
When I walked in and saw them packed out, I had no idea their connection with Van Halen and stuff. I had no idea. And I wouldn't say I didn't care. It just wasn't of interest to me. What was interest to me is that I was going to be the drummer in that band, whether I had to take the guy out. Gary Crockett, who's a friend of mine now, who is an absolute phenomenon, a drummer, man. He's incredible. He was somebody I wanted to, you know, be like, you know, definitely Gary was. Glenn Graves, Gary Crockett from back in those days, but he ended up getting picked up by Danny Johnson, who was with Rod Stewart and a bunch of other people. And then I found out the opening was in the band, like almost immediately after I seen them. and I was losing my mind. I couldn't sleep. I was like, everything I could do is like, I am going to be that man. And sure enough, I got the audition and I got the gig. And our first show was at Austin Rocks in Dallas, Texas. It's the first time I've been out on the road, professional club, professional band.
Mhm.
And we were there 3 nights. And the first night we went to Denny's after the show, and I was sitting at one end, the band was at the other, contemplating firing me. That was a wake up call.
Wow.
That was a wake up. They really were sitting there talking about firing me. So, which was crazy because it was my first night live with this band. You can imagine all the emotions trying to figure this out. Needless to
Right.
say, they were booked up with dates, getting to the point. They were booked up for the next year solid. And after about another 90 days to 6 months, I was playing my butt off with them. And about a year to 2 years later, I was a contender. I was playing 200 nights a year. It has that benefit.
200,
I always
200
tell,
nights a year.
yeah, 200 nights a year. So when I tell people that, like, if you're, however your playing is, when you go out and do, that's why I tell some of the younger guys I coach now, practicing around home is great. And that's great. And jamming with the band's great. But when you go out on the road and you get that experience, that's where you're doing 3 hours a night, 152 nights, 200 nights a year. Nothing will shape you or mold you better than that will. You're everything that goes along with it, timing, your skills, your licks, everything you can think of. And that's what did it for me. And I was playing with guys that were 10 years older than me, been on the road 10 years. They were total seasoned cats, right? Pros. So I learned the hard way, man. They would yell at me and scream at me and you're rushing, you're dragging, you're speeding up, whatever. Until finally they would make me so mad, my personality after that. I did something about it, so practice. I'm a practice advocate to this day because of it.
So I remember one of the times you told me when I saw you back home in the holidays, you've been to Tokyo or somewhere, like in Japan and around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So y'all were
I turned
everywhere,
21.
right?
Yeah. I turned 21 in Osaka, Japan when we
Osaka.
got the Osaka. Yeah. We
Mhm.
landed in Tokyo, and we were held over in Tokyo where they searched our bags thinking we had drugs. But that's just kind of a thing to do with a bunch of long-haired Americans show up at the airport. It says they're
Right.
musicians. So, but anyways, we were freed of that, thank God. And we ended up staying the first time for 45
You
days
mean
in
these
Osaka.
guys? You see these?
No, that's all the guys from that band. That the private life picture. I don't know if you have a private life
I don't
picture.
think
You
I have,
might.
but this is one.
Then
Who are
that's
these
the
guys?
girl lead singer, but that's the guys from that band. All that band right there that were in Osaka. Yeah.
There's Craig. You don't know
That's
what there
Sweden.
is.
That band is Sweden. That was after Private Life when we were really starting to get big in Hollywood then. So we were doing things with Lita Ford and all kind of people. Drummer from Quiet Riot, Frankie Vanelli, a friend of mine, Lita Ford, Vinny Appice from Dio, hanging out with the Steve Vai guys, and Edward, of course, was still backing and supporting us.
Where's
Definitely
this at, Craig?
supporting
This
us.
picture here you sent me.
That is at a club called the Country Club in Reseda, California, which was a premier showcase club. It was giant. We were playing it with a band called Rough Cut, which was Ronnie James Dio's band that he was helping, and we were opening up for them there. It was that's where that picture was taken by David Bertinelli. Took that photo, by the way. Patrick's middle brother, older brother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
so
was the big Ludwig kit I got from Alex when I turned 21 in Japan. When I got back, the kit was waiting for me.
going pro, being a professional, touring, making this truly like a lifestyle, a living. What was the highlight of that? Like I was talking earlier, what was the moment that you knew like, man, I'm really in a good place right now, a place
Um,
that
yeah, I
I
was
never
thinking about
thought I
that.
would be, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking about that when you asked me earlier, just kind of prepping me for that, and I was realizing that there was a couple moments, clearly that was like wow moments. One of them, I guess, was when I realized I was doing all these dates, and we were playing it like sold out 4 nights at the Ritz in Dallas, which the Ritz back then was, for anybody who remembers those days, was an incredible place to play. And then on stage at the Whiskey Go Go, where the Doors played, Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix started, uh, and Elton John, and a bunch of other people made famous shows there. Queen, I mean, all kind of people did. So when I realized we were headlining those shows on the weekends, and headlining 3 or 4 nights somewhere, is when I realized, wow, man, this is going, extremely well,
Hmm.
maybe better than I anticipated. But then the other moment, single-handed moment, was when I was working a lot with, when I was working with Edward Van Halen, and we got back from Japan, and him, Edward, and Alex, and Patrick. Patrick's the one that was the instigator behind that. They surprised me for my birthday, so I got back from Japan, And I was living with Eddie and Valerie and Patrick out in Malibu. That was their beach house, 5150s in Coldwater Canyon in Hollywood. Is where the studio is located. They have another house there. But I was at the beach house, which is amazing, faces the Pacific Ocean. When I got back from Japan, they said, just stay with us since you're on the road so much, because all the other band members had a place to stay. So I stayed with them for 9 months to a year, I guess.
Of course, you said, no, I don't want to do that.
No, I don't want to intrude.
You
Yeah,
guys.
you kidding me? Yeah, and Patrick and I were having rum and cokes and boogie boarding every day. I wasn't touring. Yeah, that was tough. But when I was there, Edward would wake me up, and I had they'd given me this gigantic Ludwig kit for my birthday, which I turned 21 in Japan. And Valerie, his wife, Bertinelli, and Patrick surprised us on that show. They showed up in the middle of the tour, walking through the audience while we're on stage with our translator, laughing, giggling. Of course, they were taller than everybody in there. Patrick's like 6'3", curly blonde hair Italian. Everybody's 5'5", 5'8" Japanese. So you get stuck out. You could see him like 100 yards back in the dark. And we're like, oh my God, and they stayed 2 weeks and partied with us, which was, I'm still getting over. But anyways, so when I got back and they surprised me, he gave everybody in the band gear, guitar players to the Kramer guitars he was endorsed by, keyboards to Jennifer Blakeman, who was our keyboard player, beautiful and a great. Jennifer went on to be super successful too. But they backed us all up, and he would wake me up in the morning and say, "Hey, come work on the song with me," and I would go down to the first floor, and there was not even a studio; it was just a giant room. And my drums, the whole double bass Ludwig kit they gave it to me there. Wow. So it filled the room where you could not hardly walk at all. The funny part about it was he had a little mini Marshall stack. I don't know if you've ever seen them before, Patrick, but they're mini. They look like a little miniature icebox almost. They're like 3 foot tall and about, that wide. But it is a Marshall head on top of a little stack Marshall. It's like small, but it's a practice amp. But it's tiny. But Edward had that on the end of my Ludwig kit in the room where he could stand just enough space with his Kramer guitar. And it was so funny because I'm on this gigantic, enormous Alex Van Halen drum kit that is filling the room. And there's Edward with this little bitty amp. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. We laughed about it every day. But we worked on a song. First of all, Edward had, as he always has done, has always had all the riffs and songs in his head, all of them, all the parts, bass, drums, guitar, vocal, everything. He knows what he wants. And he wrote like that to the day he died.
Where do you think he gets that from? It's like, do you think like musicians, it's just like that information just comes down? I mean, because he's creating it all from his own consciousness, right?
Well, Edward is a Martian, so I don't know.
He's a Martian.
Yeah, I really don't know how to comment on that because I've never seen anybody like that.
So saying being good, he really was one of the best of the best.
Yeah, he was remarkable to be around and witness, much less play with. We jammed together great. We love playing with each other, and we played together for a long time. Even when after I left LA, Patrick got married in Shreveport. I don't know if you remember that, and I was in his wedding. So was Edward. Well, I had a private jam session set up at the Musicians Union Hall in Shreveport with all the gear. And Jimmy Day, who was with us, who Edward gave him a guitar when he was out there. When we first got out there, I told you he left with me to go to Hollywood. Jimmy Day, he left to go back with his fiance back in Shreveport. He didn't want to do the whole lifestyle. He wanted to be back with his girl back in Shreveport. He was still playing, but Eddie loved Jimmy because Jimmy was real quiet. He's a badass player, but Edward just loved Jimmy. And I got the jam was set up after the rehearsal dinner for the wedding. And I told Edward, "You're not going to believe this. I got a room for us to jam." He goes, "Jam?" And so Patrick and 20 of his personal friends and their spouses, all of us went into a closed private room for 2 hours. And Edward started playing bass first. Edward's a monster bass player. And me on drums, and then Matt Bruck and Jimmy Day on guitar. Then we switched back, and Edward played guitar and bass and drums. And we spent 2 hours of private going in each other's throat, which we did a lot when we jammed together. But I was always asking him, he goes, "Dude, all you ever want to do is jam." I was like, and the problem with that is I was always bugging him to play, Patrick.
Let's
go jam.
Well, like you, like my friends I have, you've been one of my friends all my life, basically, is when I look at musicians like martial artists, they get together, what do? They do music. What do martial artists do? They get together and do martial arts. It's kind of like it's something that's just in your blood that just never leaves. So if they just leaked out some of your blood, it'd have musical notes in probably yours, right?
Yeah, and when the last couple of times I've been to a clinic or something, even doesn't matter what it is, even one time at the gym in New Orleans, when I had a membership to you, went up there on the second floor. You got some stuff going. Next thing there's all these people over there sparring. I was like, what the hell? Like in the middle of my gym, I'm like, what the hell's he got? You just had that vibe. And next time there's like
kind
8
of those
guys out
days
there
I
with
just
you.
walk into a place and go, room, and there's
I know.
people. Let's
And
fight.
it was great, man. I was like, there he goes. And like all these guys over there, you're doing wrist locks on, throwing people. Oh.
Yeah,
Like,
here comes one of the workers for the building. Hey, let me see your wrist, and we did put him in a wrist
cool,
lock,
though.
put him on the ground, lock him up. He'd go, hey. Next thing you know, an hour later, we're still throwing each other around.
There you were. I loved it, man, because I was like, golly, man. And it looked like it was made for that. By the time you got in there, it looked like it was made for that every day. It's like, okay, there he is. There's the Cincinnati. It's like, it was so funny. We did that more than once, if I remember. But yeah, man, it's a thing, you know, with the cats, when the guys I play with, and you know, I'm still the same way as I was when I was. That's what I try to tell most players, my old friends and stuff. I'm still just as excited and just as much energy as I ever have then as I do now. If not, I'm 10 times a musician now, though, to play, work, jam, write, record. I'm always the first, loudest one. Let's go. What do we need to do?
So let's make everybody clear. You started as a drummer, but now you play a little bit of a lot of things, right?
Well, right. I started as a drummer, and then I always co-wrote with the band. When I realized when things started slowing down for me and I wasn't doing as much band work, I'd been screaming, music been screaming out of my head for a long time, and I was finding out different ways to record it and get it down. And I hated it. I did not want to do the computer thing. I was anti-computer, probably more than anyone you know. Now I can fix computers. Don't ask me how, but after 12,000 hours of recording over 12 years, I can fix PCs and computers, Macs. It's funny, but so I got into it and I started writing, and I started learning the instruments myself. So I wouldn't have to wait on anybody. So guitar, bass, keyboards, vocals, drums, and drums already knew. I started working on engineering, mixing, learning to do that, and yeah, now I've got like 700 songs. 12 years later.
I know, like I called you one day. I said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just finishing your album." I said, "Really? How long have you been working on it?" "I just did it this week."
Yeah.
He would write out. I mean, guys, I'm not a musician near like Craig, but that is, if you've ever made an album, you know, doing all the musical instruments, doing all the recording, all the editing, the voiceovers, 1 week of doing one is kind of unheard of. I'm sure other musicians kind of look at you like, "How do you do so much of that stuff in 1 week?"
Yeah,
Right?
it's obsessive compulsive. It's something we're working on, right?
Yeah, well, you know, you have to love what you do. If you love what you do, passionate about it like you are, Craig, I mean, why not? You know,
Yeah, right.
live it. It's kind of like time. It's like when you start doing your work, I'm sure it's like me, time doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's like my wife is like, it's like the other night, my wife, like, she looked at her watch and go, "Why are you still coming on late for martial arts?" I go, "I didn't even know I was late." And you start doing what you love, next thing you know, there is no time.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And you know, Patrick, I ask you all the time, you know, it's like, I have to think that I know it's coming from a good place, you know, because I'm a good person. I know that. I know it's coming from my heart. I know it is. I mean very well with I've always meant the same with it. There's no underlining thing about that hasn't ever, you know, come out. You know what I mean? It's like always been this positive energy of creation. I'm real grateful for it. I'm always giving thanks for my abilities and stuff like that. But I have to think that it means something, that I'm still doing this with the same amount of intensity. I'm like, okay, shouldn't I stop now? And I've asked you that before. And most of my close friends go, no, don't do that. Don't do that. So yeah, so I'm not going to stop.
It's something that it probably beyond this world, you'll still be doing some kind of music. You know, the idea is music will be in this life, and the music will be in the next life. I'm sure.
Yeah, I hope so.
With all this, so Craig, with all this going on, I know this is one of the dark sides we've talked about. Is you see what happens to the dark side of the music world. It's kind of like you know, even actors in the acting world. So for the viewing audience, what are some of the things that can happen to people in this world, music world?
Well, very prevalent. Yeah. Well, the drugs and alcohol and all that stuff is a part of it because of the limelight, because of the people that are around you, because of the fame, because of successes, because of everything that goes along with it, like acting, and knew a bunch of actors out there as well. But is everything that goes along with it. It's kind of like it goes with the territory. It's just part of it, and it's very prevalent. It's very there's a lot of it, and when you've got any kind of attention drawn to you at all, right? Everybody wants to put it in your hand for free.
Right.
So, which I saw that time. I saw that done on an astronomical scale with Edward. I mean, I couldn't believe it a couple times, but it was shocking. Walking into a club one night with him, and he showed me what he was given before we got in the front door would blow your mind. So it goes with the territory, and then for people that are, things start to get a little harder on, like people like me, you know, the emotional starts really involved, and you know, kind of, you know, I fell for that pretty easy as a pain reliever, the wrong one, wrong source. But it's easy, long story short, to get wrapped up in that, and next thing you know, you're in it further and deeper than you ever suspected and you ever wanted to be. So it's just a huge part of the business naturally. If you're the strongest person in the world, it's going to be around you everywhere all the time if you're in the industry.
So if other musicians are watching this video right now, what advice can you give them when they're approached in that fashion?
Yeah, man, is stay on the path of the light, man, because the darkness will, it'll lead you the opposite direction away from your dream. That's a fact. A vast experience in that. It will lead you in the opposite direction of what you really are trying to do and what you want to do. If you get down the path of the darkness, by darkness, I mean the heavy drugs using in daily and involved with those kind of people and that kind of lifestyle, that kind of world, it will, you don't realize it at the time. You do later in life, you know, maybe when years have gone by, but um, you're literally pulling yourself, everything you work for, you're literally turned around and about face going the opposite direction, and at a great deal of speed too. Like you'll be heading the opposite direction. You won't even realize it. Then you'll be struggling in life, wondering why things are so against you, why things are so heavy and so bad, when the whole time it was you making that choice to go down that road.
Right. But yet, you know, even though things that everyone goes through, and I've watched you go through ups and downs in your life, like I do a lot of friends, and of course you know, everyone has their own ups and downs. I do as well. Is you're still here. You know, you survived.
Yeah.
You're still making music. You're still producing. In fact, you're producing even more than you ever have before.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm blessed. I'm grateful. I'm grateful
So
to
so
be
here's
able
a
to.
here's a question now. Now, music today. I always have this question to people about. Like I say, Quincy Jones. They asked him recently.
What music?
They said, yeah, they asked him, so what's your favorite music of the day? And Quincy Jones says, what music? So as far as you, how do you look at music in a positive way and a negative way today?
Um, well, I produced and worked with some guys on the hip hop. I'm not a slayer against hip hop. It's not my forte. I don't care for it. I don't listen to it. It's not my thing. So many people are into it, even my nephew, who I adore with a passion. So because my love for him, I help him with some stuff he's starting to write, by the way. But I notice even in his stuff that I listen to that he likes by the influences he's got is the message they're sending in the music, you know, is horrible. It's, you know, they wrote about things in rock music, you know, girls and falling in love in cars or whatever it might be. There was a topic, you know, there's something, whatever it might be, you know, and everything is the same. I noticed in that world, it's all about the street, and you know, there's several.
So the lyrics are really damaging to a lot of young people.
The lyrics, man, are they're unbelievable, man. I mean,
Because you
they're
write the lyrics,
unbelievable.
you do song, you write the songs, you write songs, what they say. You know
Yeah.
how powerful that can be to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they're talking about loading up their Glock, you know, to go shoot his ex, you know, wife or ex bitch, whatever they use in condensation there. And I'm ad-libbing a little bit there, but I'm, for everybody listening, I am not far off the mark, and I know that. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the message is terrible, and I'm not saying all of it. I didn't say all of it. There's some people I think doing a great job at it, and I commend them for that. The problem with that is, for me, is that the listeners, the people they're influenced, man, or the younger people they're influencing, is a problem I've got with it. They don't realize how powerful that message is to them. When the message crosses the line and people, young kids, start to think that, well, maybe it is okay if I take this Glock 9mm and go down there, which is, I mean, you never even would have heard us mention a gun in all the years we were together, and you know, all the years we've known each other, right? You wouldn't remember, seriously. I mean, I just thought about that right now this second. In 20 years professionally on the road and all that stuff, I mean, no one ever mentioned a gun, you know, in our band, not even once. I just thought of that
Well,
right now.
Craig, even that is like me. You know, I'm not a musician, but I look at lyrics of any music, and I just think a lot of young girls listen to music that's calling them these terrible names, calling them that you're nothing
Oh
more.
yeah,
And girls go, man, this is my favorite song. I go, did you not listen to what that song just said about women?
yeah,
And so,
absolutely,
so all the young girls out today, I just say, if you're listening to this video or your parents listen to this video, is listen to the lyrics. You should be listening to music that uplifts you, not music that puts you
absolutely,
down and makes you less than.
absolutely,
Because that
absolutely,
will end up in my office later in relationship issues. Okay. And so
absolutely.
yes, it will.
Yeah, man. I couldn't agree more. You know, also with racism being so prevalent, you know, they use the N word. Every one of the rap artists do, and they use it incredible amount in each song. It's like, man, you know, bro, you got to get more creative than that, man. You're trying to, you guys are yelling and hollering about, you know, racism. You guys are beating yourselves up more than are making an issue out of that. I'm not saying all of them. And I'm not saying, by the way, either that I think rock bands have it all better. No, I didn't say that at all. There's some
Right.
stuff out there just as bad. They're sending the wrong message, but both
It's
sides.
just mainly
Not
about the
pointing fingers at
message.
anybody here.
Yeah.
So not pointing fingers. I guess to leave it on a positive note, I would say that, you know, like Missy Elliott, there's an artist. She's a little bit older artist, but man, she is the most creative kick butt artist. Some stuff I've heard from rap, funk, souls. I mean, she's unbelievable. Her stuff's cutting edge, you know. I mean, there's some old school stuff too. I'm showing my age a little bit, like the time and stuff from when Prince was around. I mean, those guys were doing some crazy cool stuff, man.
Hmm.
And I know hip hop's big, and I get it, and I appreciate it. Like I said, I produce some of it. I even laid the beats on a lot of it, and I don't mean creating the beats with the computer. I mean the old-fashioned way, playing them with
Right.
the drum kit, which they love. So I'm all for that, man. I think it's great, but like I said, they could be a little bit more responsible when they realize that the average listener is 12 to 18 or 12 to 21, right? That they don't need the message that they're getting grinded all day long anyways, right? They're going to get, that's what's going on in society. Last thing you need is to be drilled with it with their song they're listening to, right? Next thing you
Right.
know, they've got that crank and they're listening to it over and over. Man, that affects you. That affects your attitude. It affects their demeanor, what they're doing in life. You can see it in them. And I think
Music affects everything.
that's a dangerous position to be in. I'd like to see more guys come along doing that with a more
That's one of the
positive
reasons I
message.
wanted to have you on today, Craig. Is I know is because you're always putting positive energy into your music, and of course, there's always going to be music that's angry or upset about an issue,
Yeah,
or that's just music and expressing itself. But you got to understand, like you said, what are the listeners, what age groups,
right,
and when you're making music, be responsible for your lyrics of who's going to be listening to it, because you know you're going to be affecting people either in a positive way or a negative way. And
right.
that's a choice by someone who's writing the lyrics and those who are singing the lyrics.
That's a good point. It is a
Yeah.
choice that they're writing. That's right. Always,
So,
that's
so
right.
my big question today is: rock and roll dead?
Mm, rock and roll dead. That's an interesting one. That perplexes me, and it's got me vexed now. I don't think it's over by a long shot. What I think is people become creatures of habit. What they're in right now is what they're in. This day and age of music, you know, whatever it is, I can't really identify it really what it is, but they're into that. But what I think what happens is the more people get a taste of what real musicians and real bands are like, right? That go to
Mhm.
that live scene instead of someone just up there yapping, you know, and there's just a PA system, that's it, versus seeing three or four or five people on stage that are a super tight unit, you know, band that are really doing something sensational work, grooving, jamming. I think the
I mean,
live
there's
scene
nothing like
for not
going
just
to
rock
like
and
a live
roll,
band.
for
Really,
funk, do
yeah,
what
go
now?
see a live band. Whatever, if, as long as they're playing good music, a live band is still you're just going to feel the energy of the people playing.
Absolutely, man. And I think so that not just rock, obviously, that goes for all kind of styles of music. That's going to influence all that, which is going to benefit across the board
We
from
saw
whatever
Latin.
style
We
you're
saw
into.
this Latin band a while back, and it just like powerful. Just
Oh yeah.
the
Oh dude,
energy
I've seen it.
behind the people playing. It doesn't matter what your musical taste is. You can't help but feel something really positive about what you're listening to.
An old girlfriend of mine brought me to hear one of those here in Dallas that blew me away, their rhythm section. They were so unbelievable. Yeah. So you're right. And I think that's gonna make a comeback. But back to your question, rock. We're talking about rock. That's a good
Rock and
point because
roll, back to
all
the
the other
'80s. Rock
styles,
and
right?
roll.
Rock, man, is I don't know where it's at right now, man. I think it's gonna come back. I believe it's gonna come back. I stay true to my form. I have people yell at me all the time, dude, that's not gonna sell what you're working on. That's not commercial, blah, blah. I'm like, man, dude, you're preaching to the wrong person, bro. Because I've already heard it, been there, done it, seen it. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm gonna stay true to my art form. I don't need you to tell me. I don't need if I need to redirect some, I'm cognizant of it. I'll redirect it. But
Now tell people like Craig, they can find music like what they're using for movie lyrics or different things. You have like online
yeah,
areas for people to find your music. Where would
yeah.
they find it at?
Well, you can go to Craig Anthony Sweden Music on Google, Craig Anthony
Google.
Sweden Music. Yeah. And then you can go to YouTube, Craig Anthony Sweden, and find me that way. I'm also on iTunes
Sweden
and
with two E's.
with two SWEEDN. Yeah.
Two
But I'm
E's.
also on
Okay.
all the major iTunes and Spotify and, you know, all those different SoundCloud and you name it. I'm on like 21 of those. But also you can find me on the YouTube thing. But also I do some vocal work for a band called the Noon Universe. You can find me there too as well. But that's all about to change to distribution I'm working on, and some products like my art, so my artwork and music. I'm going to be featuring on a new site called 571xxl.com, which is a global site that's being launched here in January. That's going to have a major impact, I think, on a lot of things too for me, my music and stuff. So, but I'm
Craig,
still shopping music for soundtrack work now. So,
Craig, I want to for a second just play a little clip from one of your videos, so people kind of hear a little bit
sure.
who Craig is. And Craig is so versatile. You seeing that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
It's kind of slow moving, like it's stuttering. Is it stuttering on your end?
You made the artwork as far as the video we're looking at also.
Yeah, is the video, it's on my end, it's like still, it's like slow-mo, it's like popping, jumping. Is it doing on your end, or are
Okay.
you getting a real live feed? If you,
What
as
we'll
long as
do
you
is
are,
at
that's
the
cool.
what we'll do is at the end of the show here,
Yeah.
I'll make some links here for people to look, because guys,
Okay.
Craig has tons of music out there. He sends me stuff all the time, and so I always pick out some of my favorites to go work out, because when I go to the gym, work out, go exercise, Craig's music really kind of gets you going to go work out. And if you're an old Pink Floyd a fan of the old days, he's got one song. It's called, what's that? The name of that one, Craig?
The long way. It's on YouTube.
The Long Way on YouTube.
Mhm.
Wonderful song, guys. You're looking for driving music on a road trip. Put some of this music on, and it's just great stuff. Now, those of you out there, the younger generation, that want to see some of this, educate yourself. Be versatile. Just don't listen to one type of music today. Myself, if you look at the list of music I listen to, there's a little bit of everything that I'm listening to in music, and you should do the same. Don't just
Absolutely.
make yourself, like the horse with the blinders on, listen to one type of music. Take a look around today and hear other artists, especially like Craig. If you listen to some of his music, you're going to find something that's going to feel, you're going to feel it with your body, listen to it, and open up your mind.
Yeah.
So Craig, where do you see like music itself, where do you see the future of where we're going here? The world's going right
Um,
now. Because you
yeah.
look at it on a worldwide basis where music is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, where it's going, there's so much streaming going on now. I do want to say this to the listener, your listener, to your folks.
Mhm.
Like, this is going to comment on the quality of it. So many people got used to the masses in the United States just follow the leader, right? They tell us to do it. Everybody's like, "Rrr, go that
Right.
direction." Right. Well, everybody's streaming, right? Stuff that is the worst possible quality you can possibly get of an audio signal of a song is streaming. If you in Japan, CDs are still gigantic in Japan, not because they're behind the times. They're always about 10 years ahead of us. They have been forever. They are now. Is because they realize that the format is a better format. It's a better sound. If you don't believe me, anybody out there, if you got a high resolution CD or an album, someone
Mhm.
listen to the song streaming it, then go pop the CD in of that and tell me if you hear a
Big
difference. And
difference. I got
big difference.
in my car. I made sure it still had a CD player in the car
Yeah,
I have now.
absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
idea is, man, when you play music back to the CD player, you really hear all the sound. It's so
Yeah.
much different, so much better.
It's some people think of that as an antiquated, oh, that's an old, you guys are old, whatever. That's fine. You can think that way, but when you start really appreciating it, you'll realize it's not an old format. It is the right format. It is a good format. It's a very versatile format. But beyond all that, it's the highest resolution of the song that you can get. And that resolution, when people, Patrick, today start listening to the waveform, like real high resolution waveform, all the music, they would hear their songs they're listening to now and completely blow their minds of all the instruments that are going to come out in the details. So where we're going in the future, I think, I hope, is people start paying more attention to the resolution, the quality of what they're listening to. But I really don't know, man. It's everything's so laid out and so dispersed over such a wide playing field, with online being, I mean, it's just incredible, man. I mean, I was looking for an album today by a band I'm a big fan of from the UK called Amplifier. and I don't have it in my cloud. I wanted it again, so I downloaded by the way, I downloaded the waveform of that. They had the MP3, the waveform is about 10 times bigger, and I was like, that's what I want because it's uncompressed, it's good quality. So, but anyways, I found they're on about 50 different sites. They're spread all over the place. So
So you
I
can
really
get, so
don't.
you can still get the quality with technology versus the CD. So
Yes, yes.
how would you recommend people listen to music without
Yeah.
a CD then?
Uh, um, well, that's a little tricky because when they download it at high quality, it's going to be compressed once it gets onto their phone or then their iTunes or their player or whatever they've got.
Hmm.
I'll have to get back with you on that. I'm not sure the best way for the
CD is
average
still the best.
listener.
If they're going to do something,
If
they
they
can
could,
get
if
it
they could,
on the
if they could
CD.
get a high quality resolution CD, it would be the best. If they could just order that, buy that, or if they could download extremely high quality from the site they're getting. People should check out the website Discog, Disc
Discog.
Discog, yeah, DISKCOG, I think it is, discog.com.
Okay.
Check that out. It's the biggest library in the world. You can get 8-track tapes, cassettes, albums, vinyl, DATs, streaming in any format you can imagine, plus a whole bunch you've never heard of anybody you could possibly imagine in your lifetime is on there. So go on there and look for stuff that maybe if you're a fan of a certain album, from even today, not way back, and try to get it in a higher resolution download. Instead of streaming it, download it so you actually own it. That's another thing. The
Download
government,
it.
everybody else, then nobody wants you to own anything anymore. Own it, download it. So you got it. You got a copy of it. It's yours. You don't have to go stream it later. You own it. That's the
Okay.
biggest tip I could give the
There you
listener
go.
today. Don't just follow the mass, follow everybody around because that's what everybody's doing. That's kind of like the wireless headphone thing. I went in Best Buy. You cannot find a set of wireless headphones. Here we go, Patrick. Here's a little thing for
Mhm.
the ending of it. Check this out, folks. Wired
Okay.
headphones will give you a signal that is about 4 times better than wireless any day of
Oh,
the
I'm
week,
sure.
period.
Sure.
Jeez, man, people are missing out so much. And
I
the
still got an old
latency.
set. I got an old set of ones that is good quality. Let's plug them in directly to the music, and it's like, wow, okay, big
Yeah, man.
difference.
Yeah. Even the high dollar wireless, they have no clue, man. They go
Yeah.
out and get a good set of headphones that plug in wired. If you really want to listen to quality, really nice quality, if you don't care about quality, if you just care if it's just thin little compressed, hyper compressed sound, knock
Mhm.
yourself out. Keep
Hmm.
streaming.
So the last message of today. So to all these people involved in music here, what kind of message would you give to the new musicians out there starting today, looking to make themselves? Any kind of advice you could help them get a step further in
Yeah.
what they're doing, what they're working at?
Yeah. Practice, 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 and then practice more and more and more as much as you can. Daily,
Mhm.
every day, practice. Second thing is try to find someone that's better than you to jam and play with or to work with. Definitely find a teacher or a coach if you're looking for a teacher for guitar. Definitely find someone that's way better than you to teach. Try to find someone that's better to jam with, play with. They'll always push you to a higher level, and then practice your butt off as much as you can. Study, learn. There've never been more tools for musicians today than there has been in our lifetimes. Proof of that is every time someone runs up and goes, "Hey, do you hear those 6-year-olds playing Tool?" Like, I'm sure you've heard that too, right? They're on YouTube. Patrick, have you heard any of those young people
No,
playing
I haven't
those?
heard that.
Oh
Oh,
my God, dude! It's unbelievable to watch them. They're perfect. And there's
wow.
too many to tell you. It's not just a group of 6-year-olds because there's like 50,000 of them doing it. The reason that's so is because they can go on YouTube and find Steve Vai teaching how to play it and then slow him down and reverse it
Mhm.
infinite amount of times. Dude, when I was growing up, I don't think I ever saw Rush on a video my whole lifetime till I was much older in life. I think I saw him a couple times on an MTV thing. I never got to sit down and watch Neil Peart play unless I saw him in
Mhm.
show ever, not even once. So what the
Mhm.
kids got now, they can pull up their favorite artists, whoever that might be, they're studying, and not only giving lessons, generic lessons, but they could probably even pay for private for most of these. From what I understand, a lot of guys are doing that now. I think Vi is doing that too. I think Satriani's doing that as well. I know Todd
Are,
Zuckerman from Styx,
are you
drummer
doing
friend of
any
mine. So
mentoring yourself as far as any young musician out there
I've got
wants to
like
contact
six
you?
students. I've got 6 students right now. I teach how to practice and teach the basics of recording from the ground up, like just basic recording to get them where they're laying tracks and get them to where they mix good and where I try to keep them on a practice routine. And I teach them some fundamentals that they need to have in their everyday life as a musician on set some goals. But there's some things that's funny though, man. I teach the people you know, a couple of guys I'm working with now won't get down and and it's like, they tell me, I want to be a cat like you. I'm like, that's a big statement. You said, you know, it's a big statement. There comes a lot of commitment with that. And they're like, but you don't understand. They're like telling me like I used to talk to people. I'm like, okay, here's what I do exactly to a T. And then 3 months later, I go, why don't you just pull it up in your playlist on your phone? I know you got it on there. And a guy I'm working with right now still don't have it. I said, that's funny. I've got your playlist on my phone, and I've got all 15 tracks you've ever done in your life right here in mine. I can listen and study your stuff all day. You don't have them on your phone? And then so they don't listen. But a couple of them are coming around.
Well,
So
I know being a musician, I've watched you and my friend Robert Aviles, and he was the first person because you never told me how long you used to practice. I know you did it all the time, but Robert says, yeah, 8 hours a day I was playing the piano. I go, like a job? He goes, well, I was a musician, so at home I practiced all day long and then performed at night. I was
yeah,
like, well, I guess if you're a professional, that's what you do. You practice your trade all day long.
yeah,
And
absolutely. Yes,
when
it's
I
not
was,
odd for me to go 12, 14 hours in the studio, not unusual at all. So I do it quite often. It's exhausting. I don't like to do it all the time like that, but I get lost in it, you know, and next thing I know, it's 5 in the morning. I'm like, I started at 5 p.m. yesterday,
Mhm.
you know, but I'll get lost and I won't stop no matter what. Even if I got to work, it's hard headed.
So Craig, if people would like to get in touch with you, is there some specific way they can contact you?
Yeah, they can go to casworldmusic@gmail.com. That's CASWORLD music at gmail.com.
Okay, so at the end of this video, guys, I'll list all these things as far as how to find Craig's music, how to find him online, and how to contact Craig Sweeden. And Craig, I appreciate you coming on today. We've known each other many years. We're looking forward to getting you live here on this video. And so now I have my actual body detective show, and I look at you as another world-class player because, guys, Craig is a very humble person, but let me tell you, put him out there against anybody out there playing today. And it's funny, I asked him, like someone asked me as a martial artist, who do you look up to? Who do you look up as like, wow, watching somebody? And he sent me some guys the other day they have 8 strings on all their guitars and bass players, the whole band. He sent me some guys playing, and it's like, this is what a professional looks at another professional. And these guys are like, wow. So, but I look at you, Craig, it's like you're the person who got me involved in playing the drums. I'm not a world-class player in this lifetime, but maybe in my last lifetime I was.
Yeah, you're
But
you're 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 a
but I
great
but I love
teacher.
music, and those out there, you guys want to play music. Remember, it doesn't. You don't have to be Craig Sweeden, but if you're like me, if you play something and you love just hearing music, love playing the guitar, the bass, the drums like I do. Just start playing, start doing some because there's so many of us that are just playing this, right? The video
Oh
games.
yeah, man.
Get your hands, beat on some drums, play the guitar, play some music live for yourself. There's nothing like waking up your senses. There's music and then feeling the music. I know Craig, you'll agree with that. Is get off the video
Absolutely.
games and play the real thing, right?
It's like our old friend Clay says, as a physical therapist of 30 years, the human body is not designed to sit down. He told me that was a great statement. It's
Right,
not.
right,
It's not designed to sit down.
right.
I want to tell everybody too, man. I've been ditto back to you, Patrick. Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan, and you know all the reasons why. Too many to list on this show for you. So I'm always following you and calling you and asking for your guidance in this life that can get really, really tough. I need people like you there to kind of keep me straightened out, man. I'm glad you're there after all these years too. So thanks for having me, bro.
Goes both ways. All right, guys. This is Craig Sweeden I have on the show today, guys. I'm Dr.
Cheers.
Patrick Price, the body detective. And guys, thanks for watching the show. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.